And that healing no longer allows access to those who only knock when they need something. You gave the world your all. Now, it's time to give that same dedication to your soul. You don't carry everyone anymore, because now you carry yourself. And that is more than enough. You remember the time you tried to please everyone, how much it cost you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You said yes when you wanted to say no. You showed up for others while you were breaking inside. You performed happiness like a show, and still, it was never enough. Until you realized, peace isn't about being accepted by everyone. It's about being aligned with yourself. Sometimes, peace looks like cutting ties. Sometimes, peace looks like cutting ties. Sometimes it looks like canceling the plans. Sometimes it's deleting the message before you send it, not because you're weak, but because your healing no longer needs that energy. Peace is the maturity to walk away when your spirit feels disturbed. It's the power to smile without explaining yourself. And it's the discipline to keep your life simple when the world wants it loud and complicated. Even in your home, peace is the new success. Coming back to a space that feels safe. No standing on the world stage if your soul is backstage screaming for help. Now success is waking up and choosing peace over pressure, softness over stress, presence over performance. And when you choose that every day, you don't just survive, you rise. Quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. Growth doesn't end when you turn 60. It begins there. Because by that time, you're no longer chasing approval, applause, or artificial milestones. You've lived enough to know that the real work, the sacred work, starts when the noise settles. At 60, your body may have slowed, but your spirit is wiser, sharper, more refined. That's when the real bloom nature. You're no longer asking for permission. You're no longer worried about being too much or not enough. You're just being. Boldly, beautifully, and without apology. At this stage, growth isn't about building a resume. It's about building peace. It's about learning how to live without rushing. How to say no with grace. How to say no with grace. How to cry without shame. And love without fear. And yes, the world may try to tell you to slow down, to sit back, to stay quiet, but the world doesn't know the fire that still burns inside you. You didn't come this far just to shrink into silence. You came this far to evolve, to explore the parts of yourself you never had time to meet, to fall in love with life all over again. Not because it's perfect, but because you are finally awake in it. This kind of growth doesn't come from reading self-help books. It comes from life itself. From the pain you survived, the heartbreak you healed, the mistakes that humbled you, the strength it took to stay soft in a world that tried to harden you. You're not just older, you're deeper. And that depth is fertile ground for a new version of you. Now your beauty isn't just in your face, it's in your stillness, your silence, your unshakable calm, your boundaries, your ability to sit with yourself and like what you hear. You realize that the most powerful thing a woman can do after 60 is begin again, on her terms, with her rules, for her own soul's sake. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them whisper your name in rooms you've never stepped into. Misinterpret your silence and twist your truth into stories that fit their small view of the world. That's not your battle, that's not your burden. Because the older you grow, the more you realize. Peace is more powerful than proving. You don't owe any clarity to people committed to confusion. You've spent too many years trying to explain your heart to people who only listened to reply, not to understand. You've lowered your voice just to be heard. You've shrunk your soul just to fit into their comfort zone. And still, it was never enough. So now, you stop performing. You stop over-explaining. You stop translating your spirit into a language that dishonors your depth. If they wanted to understand you, they would ask. If they wanted to see you, they would look beyond the gossip. Everyday life teaches this over and over. A woman chooses to walk away from a toxic relationship and they call her selfish. She chooses peace over drama and they label her cold. She says no without guilt and they call her arrogant. But look closely. Is she breaking or is she blooming? There's a million ways to look at this. I looked at the way she treated her husband. They call her cold. She chooses peace or is she blooming? I looked at glasses and they call her slow. I asked myself, because the most misunderstood women are often the most awakened ones. They don't explain anymore because they've learned the people meant for you never need subtitles. Let them call you distant when you protect your energy. Let them call you difficult when you stop people pleasing. Let them call you dramatic when you express your truth. That says more about their discomfort with boundaries than it does about your character. You didn't come this far to be liked. You came this far to be liberated. Your silence doesn't mean guilt. It means growth. It means you're done begging to be understood in rooms that don't honor your voice. Think about the woman in the family who decides to stop attending every gathering where she's the topic of attack. The woman at work who no longer stays late to clean up everyone else's chaos. The friend who stopped texting first just to see who really cares. And suddenly, everyone says, she's changed. No. She evolved. She chose herself. And that choice is rarely applauded by those who benefited from her self-abandonment. Let them talk. Because while they talk, you're healing. While they judge, you're growing. While they mock your solitude, you're building an unshakable foundation within. You're learning to trust your path, even when it's quiet. You're discovering that not everyone deserves access to your truth and not every opinion requires your reaction. Silence, when rooted in self-respect, is not weakness. It is warfare without violence. It is choosing peace in a world addicted to noise. You have to stop watering dead plants just to prove you're kind. You have to stop setting yourself on fire to warm people who'd never light a match for you. There's a version of you that used to beg for understanding. But this version, this one smiles, nods, and walks away. Not from anger, but from power. The kind of power that doesn't compete. Do you know what real power looks like? It's not screaming. It's not reacting. It's not clapping back. It's sitting in the room where they tried to break you, smiling, glowing and unfazed. Because you finally realize that silence speaks louder than noise. That peace is wealth. That boundaries are not barriers. They are bridges to freedom. And the one who can walk away without a word is often the one who holds all the control. You know, the one who can walk away without a word is often the one who holds all the control. They told you aging meant fading. They were wrong. Aging means becoming undeniable. With every gray hair comes wisdom. With every wrinkle, a story. With every scar, a survival. You're not disappearing, you're evolving. You're stepping into a chapter where your value isn't negotiable and your presence is a privilege, not a given. You are not someone's second option. You are not someone's emotional trash bin. You are not the fixer anymore. You are the foundation. You don't owe anyone softness if they've weaponized your kindness. You don't have to anymore. You're living for alignment. And as long as you walk in truth, speak from love, and rise in silence, you've already won. Because the world's loudest critics cannot touch a woman who is quietly in love with her own peace. And that is the loudest victory of all. As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. You are no longer the caretaker of chaos. And that is not selfish, it's sacred. There was a time you said yes when your heart whispered no. You were the peacemaker in a war that wasn't even yours. The one who carried burdens in silence because you didn't want to upset anyone. The one who swallowed pain like it was the harsh truth that will liberate you. Some people will never be satisfied, no matter how much of yourself you give away. You're not a trash can for other people's emotional garbage. You're not a repair shop for broken souls who don't even want to heal. You're not a rehab center for the reckless, the selfish, the manipulators who love your softness but mock your strength. Let that sink in. You are not their rescue mission. You are your own salvation. Think about how often you put your dreams on hold to help someone else chase theirs. How often you stayed on the phone for hours listening to drama that drained you. How many times you said, "I'm fine," when you were crumbling inside just to keep the peace. That peace you protected wasn't even real. It was borrowed. And it cost you your identity. Now, in this chapter of your life, you are allowed, no, you are required to choose you. You're no longer the referee in toxic relationships. You're not the unpaid therapist in family circles. You're not the one who keeps showing up for people who never notice when you disappear. Your silence now is not cold. It is healing. Your withdrawal is not rude, it is divine. You are pulling back because you finally realized chaos only survives when it has a caretaker. Look at your daily life now. The peace you feel when you don't answer every call. The energy you gain when you stop over-explaining. The clarity you unlock when you choose to stay out of arguments that don't nourish your soul. That's not loneliness. That's self-respect. Imagine someone walking into your clean, beautiful home and tracking mud all over your floor. Would you smile and hand them more dirt? No. You'd stop them at the door. So why is it that for so many years you let people drag their emotional mud into your mind, your spirit, your life? You've learned now. You've outgrown the role of emotional janitor. From now on, you sit with your coffee and your peace in the morning, and you don't check your phone just because someone might need you. You give yourself permission to say, I'm not available for this anymore. You let your energy be sacred, not spent. You let people figure out their own chaos while you figure out your own calm. Silence is a weapon, not a weakness. You don't have to raise your voice to prove your power. In fact, the most dangerous kind of strength isn't loud, it's calm, it's composed. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are and doesn't need the world's applause to validate it. That's where you are now. There was a time you reacted to every insult. Every misunderstanding turned into a debate. Every disrespect needed an explanation, a defense, a counterattack. And you thought that made you strong. But real strength? It's choosing not to respond when your peace is more valuable than the argument. Because when you master your silence, you master your emotions. And when you master your emotions, no one can control you. You see it in your daily life. The co-worker who keeps testing you, waiting for you to snap. The family member who throws subtle shade just to trigger the old you. The friend who disappears when you need them, but shows up when they need something. They expect the reaction. They expect the rage. They want the drama. And when you give them silence instead, that's when they realize they can't reach you anymore. Not on that level. Silence creates discomfort in those who thrive on chaos. It exposes people without you lifting a finger, because your stillness forces them to face their own noise. It's no longer about proving who is right. It's about protecting what's left of your energy. And not everything deserves your energy anymore. Not every message needs a reply. Not every rumor needs a rebuttal. Not every attack deserves an audience. You used to believe silence meant surrender. That if you didn't speak up, they'd win. But now you know better. Sometimes silence is the scream. It's the shout that says, you no longer have access to disturb my spirit. It's the unspoken line drawn in the sand that says, this is where my peace begins and your chaos ends. And that kind of silence, that's power most people will never understand. Picture this, two people arguing in public. One is shouting, flailing, desperate to be heard. The other stands still, silent, eyes calm. Who looks more powerful? Who holds the room? The one who isn't moved. The one who chooses stillness over stupidity. That's who you're becoming. The person who doesn't need to bark to prove they're a lion. In a world addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. Everyone's online screaming opinions, living for likes, begging for validation. But the ones who move in silence, they're the ones who are building empires, healing deeply, glowing differently. When you choose not to speak, not to explain, not to defend, you reclaim your power. Because silence says, I'm not here to perform, I'm here to evolve. Even in relationships, silence speaks louder than words. When someone disrespects your boundaries, you don't have to yell. You just distance. When someone stops showing up for you, you don't have to chase. You just stop calling. When someone lies, betrays, or belittles you, you don't beg for clarity. You just go quiet. And that quiet, that's when they start to panic. Because your silence is proof that you've detached. And nothing is scarier to someone who once controlled you than the moment they no longer affect you. You're learning that not responding is responding. You're realizing that peace is louder than pain. You're growing into the version of yourself who doesn't need to prove her worth with words. She walks in, and her energy speaks. She leaves, and her absence echoes. That's not weakness. That's legendary. You don't owe anyone access to your energy. Let that settle deep in your spirit. Because for too long, you've been running on empty, trying to fill everyone else's cup while yours stayed bone dry. You gave your attention, your time, your compassion and your light to people who didn't even pause to say thank you. And you thought that was love. You thought that was loyalty. But now, you know better. Your energy is not free. It's sacred. And it's time to protect it like the treasure it is. You are not a battery for broken people to recharge on demand. You are not a vending machine of emotional support. You don't exist just to uplift others while you crumble behind closed doors. There's nothing noble about self-neglect. There's nothing admirable about giving your light to people who only come around when their own world goes dark. Ask yourself, how many times did they show up when you were the one silently drowning? Think about the everyday moments you've allowed your energy to be drained. That friend who only calls to complain, never to celebrate. The one who dumps their negativity on you like a daily chore, then vanishes once they feel better. Or the family member who always needs a favor. Always just one more thing, but never once asks how you are. And you said yes, every time. Because you didn't want to seem selfish, but now you understand, saying no to them is saying yes to yourself. Your peace is not a public playground. Not everyone deserves to walk in and stomp around. Just because someone has known you for years doesn't mean they've earned a place in your present. History doesn't equal access. You've evolved. You've outgrown people who still think they can tap into your spirit whenever they please. That's not growth for them. That's controlled. You have every right to be unavailable. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You don't have to answer every call, respond to every message, or explain why you're resting instead of rescuing. No is a full sentence. And I don't have the energy is a powerful boundary, not a weakness. In your daily life, you feel it more now. You notice how exhausted you get after being around certain people. You see how some conversations leave you lighter, while others drain you to the core. Pay attention to that. Energy is real. And protecting yours is not just self-care, it's survival. You can't heal, grow, or glow while being plugged into chaos. It's okay to retreat. To spend a day with your phone on silent, your heart at peace, and your soul recharging. You don't need an excuse to protect your vibe. You don't need permission to choose yourself. You're not cold. You're conserving. You're not distant. You're detoxing, and anyone who takes that personally was probably feeding off your access for too long. You're finally understanding that your energy is a gift. It's not for everyone. It's not for the ungrateful, the inconsistent, the disrespectful, or the draining. From now on, people earn your presence. They earn your time. They earn your light. Because being close to you is a privilege, not a right. You are not here to be constantly available. You are here to be aligned. And if something or someone throws you off balance, you owe it to yourself to walk away, log off, disconnect. You don't have to carry everyone. You don't have to be the hero in every story. Sometimes the real power is in closing the door, locking it, and sitting in silence with your soul. Because your energy is your empire, and not everyone gets a key. Peace is the new level of success. Not the car, not the claps, not the crowded rooms or the curated Instagram life. It's the moment you wake up in the morning, take a deep breath, and your heart doesn't feel heavy. That's success. The moment you can sit alone, without noise, and not feel lonely, that's freedom. Because what's the point of having everything if you don't have peace within? We were raised to chase things, titles, applause, relationships, wealth, all the things that shine. But no one told us that the shine can blind you. No one warned us that success without peace is just pressure. You can have the house and still be homeless in your own heart. You can be loved by the crowd and still unloved by yourself. So now, in this stage of your life, the question is no longer, how much do I have? It's how do I feel when I'm alone with it? Everyday examples show you this. You see the woman in the expensive suit, walking fast, taking calls, closing deals, her face tight with stress. Then you see the older lady in her garden, hands in the soil, humming to herself with no one watching. Who looks more successful? Who looks more alive? The one whose soul isn't for sale. That's peace. That's the real glow up. Peace means saying no without guilt. It means leaving the room when the energy doesn't feel right. It means letting go of the people who demand a version of you that exhausts you. That's the kind of success you can't fake. You could be driving the most luxurious car, and if you're crying in the front seat, that's not wealth, it's a trap. But if you're walking in your slippers, sipping tea, no drama, no chaos, no fear of the next phone call, that's luxury. Money can't buy. Tension. No hidden resentment, no fake smiles, just air you can breathe. Food you can enjoy. People who understand silence isn't awkward, it's sacred. You don't have to fill every second with sound. You don't have to fix every problem right away. You just have to protect your peace like it's your purpose. In relationships too, peace is the prize. It's no longer about the butterflies or the drama. We have respect and hope. We have connection, love. 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 We have connection. It's about stability. A love that doesn't come with mood swings and mixed signals. A love that feels like coming home, not surviving a storm. You're not looking for passion that burns. You're looking for warmth that lasts. That's peace. That's success. This version of you isn't desperate to prove anything. You're not addicted to being seen. You're addicted to being calm. You're not chasing noise. You're chasing alignment. You're not impressing strangers. You're investing in your serenity. Because what's the point of begins? Because now you're finally growing for yourself, not for the world. Think about the years you spent surviving, raising children, building a career, keeping a home together, holding everyone else up. You were the anchor for everyone's storm. You sacrificed your sleep, your dreams, your desires, all to make sure the people you loved had what they needed. That was a kind of growth too. But it was growth under pressure. It was survival mode. Now, after 60, it's time for conscious, soulful, fearless growth. The kind that belongs to you. Daily life proves this quietly. A woman in her 30s might start a new job and feel like she's winning. But a woman in her 60s starts painting again after 3 decades of putting her passion away. And that is transformation. That is resurrection. That is a whisper from the universe that says, it's not too late. Your soul still has chapters to write. You don't stop dreaming because you've aged. You start dreaming differently, richer, braver, with no fear of judgment. People act like growth is reserved for youth. But when you're young, you don't even know who you are yet. Your choices are shaped by fear of being left behind or by the pressure of being liked. After 60, those illusions start to fall apart. You don't care who doesn't get it. You don't beg to be seen. You start making choices from wisdom, not insecurity. You don't chase, you create. And that shift, that's divine. Take, for example, the woman who, at 65, enrolls in her first yoga class, not to lose weight, but to find inner stillness. Or the retired teacher who starts writing poetry, not for a publisher, but for her soul. Or the grandmother who travels solo, not because she's finally running toward herself. That's not midlife, that's a rebirth. A woman in her 60s who knows who she is, that's a force of chase, doesn't crumble. The truth is, the most powerful women in the world are not loud. They're misunderstood on purpose. Because they refuse to be available for narratives that insult their knowing. They're too focused on building empires of peace, joy, and wisdom. They know that the minute you stop defending your character, you start protecting your energy. And that's when real freedom begins. So let them talk, let them label, let them wonder how you're so calm, so quiet, so unaffected. Let them create their version of you. Meanwhile, you create your life. A life that no longer dances for approval or begs for validation. A life that belongs to you, your soul, and your sacred silence. You've given the world your voice, your time, your heart for decades. You've fought battles no one saw, cried behind doors no one ever knocked on, and still stood up the next morning like nothing broke inside you. But now, in this season of your life, it's not about noise, it's about knowing. Not about proving, it's about protecting. Not about being everything to everyone, it's about being everything to yourself. That is the fire that no one sees but everyone feels when you walk into a room in silence. Let them say, you changed. Because you have. You are not the same woman who used to tolerate disrespect in the name of family. You're not the same soul who used to bend just to keep friendships intact. You've outgrown chaos. You've outgrown desperation. You've outgrown the need to explain your worth. This version of you is not bitter. She's clear on who she is, what she deserves, and what she will never entertain again. Explain your silence when it's your sanctuary. You don't need to water relationships that only grow when you're the rain. Let them call you selfish for finally choosing your own peace. Let them say you're distant for building distance from disrespect. Let them talk because while they gossip, you're glowing. While they underestimate you, you're rising. Remember this, the most powerful woman in any room is the one who doesn't need to announce her power. She walks in silence, but her presence screams. She forgives, but never forgets. She loves, but no longer loses herself in that love. She listens, but no longer absorbs the opinions that try to shrink her. You are that woman now, not someday, now. So when they say you've changed, smile and say, finally. When they say, you're so quiet now, look them in the eyes and say, I learned Peace speaks for itself. When they ask, why don't you come around anymore? Softly say, because I no longer go where I'm not valued. These are not comebacks, these are crowns. Every woman reaches a point where she either breaks or becomes unshakable. And you, my love, chose the second. You chose self-respect over approval, healing over history, growth over guilt. And now, your silence is not the absence of voice, it's the presence of power. You are no longer interested in being understood, you are interested in being free. Stay close to anything that makes you feel like sunlight, they said, and now you are your own sun. You don't wait for permission to shine. You decide to shine. You don't chase closure anymore, you are the closure.